All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to today's geopolitical breakdown. We're looking at something absolutely unprecedented today, an event that literally just rewired the global balance of power overnight. I'm talking about the January 2026 United States extraction operation in Venezuela. Now, you've probably heard the whispers, maybe seen the unconfirmed reports flying around social media, but today, we're cutting through the noise. We're going to use the actual sources, raw data, and direct statements from the ground to piece together exactly what went down, why it happened, and how this is going to ripple through the global economy we all interact with every single day. We've got a ton of ground to cover, so let's just drop right into the absolute chaos of how this kicked off.
Okay, picture this. It's the dead of night, January 3rd, 2026, exactly 2 a.m. on the ground in northern Venezuela. Everything's quiet. And then, boom! The silence is just entirely shattered. Deafening explosions start echoing all across the capital city of Caracas. Out of nowhere, the pitch-black sky is suddenly vibrating with the roar of U.S. warplanes and the super-heavy, unmistakable thrumming of military helicopters. The vibe in the city? Pure, unadulterated terror. Total confusion. I mean, the immediate question for anyone waking up to this nightmare was, is this a targeted strike, or are we looking at the start of a full-scale war?
Things escalated incredibly fast on the ground. We're talking U.S. rockets and missiles coming down dangerously close to densely populated urban neighborhoods. Meanwhile, just off the coast in the Caribbean Sea, a massive fleet of U.S. Navy warships had already locked down the entire coastline. But here's the thing, the Venezuelan military? They didn't just stand down. According to Venezuelan Defense Minister Vladimir Pedrino Lopez, their forces actively fired back at the incoming U.S. choppers. Based on his reports from the ground, there were tragic civilian casualties in the crossfire, and crucially, several U.S. troops actually sustained injuries as this whole situation just completely spiraled out of control.
So what was actually happening? Well, the truth came out just a few hours later. At exactly 5:21 a.m., U.S. President Donald Trump dropped a massive bombshell on Truth Social. The post read, Nicolás Maduro and Cilia Flores have been arrested and moved out of the country. In a fraction of a second, the whole world realized this wasn't an airstrike. No, this was a highly orchestrated, covert extraction mission executed deep behind enemy lines by U.S. Delta Force. They literally went in and physically removed the sitting president of Venezuela and his wife in the middle of the night. Absolutely wild.
Section 1. Operation Southern Spear and the months of preparation.
Because, guys, an op like this doesn't happen overnight. Let's trace the breadcrumbs here. Starting way back in August 2025, the U.S. quietly but significantly ramped up its military footprint in the southern Caribbean. By September, Operation Southern Spear officially kicked off, supposedly targeting narco-smuggling networks tied to the Maduro regime. But look at November. Things really step up. The U.S. Navy parks a full-blown aircraft carrier in the region. Then December hits. The pressure cooker is whistling. Venezuelan oil ships are getting seized, CIA covert ops are humming in the background. And then, the ultimate linchpin. Just weeks before the strike, the U.S. quietly locks down a strategic pact with Trinidad and Tobago. That gave American forces vital airbase access right on Venezuela's front porch. So yeah, January 3rd wasn't a spontaneous decision. It was the climax of a meticulous, months-long chess match.
Section 2. The charges. Justifying the extraction.
So how exactly does Washington justify ripping a foreign head of state out of their own country? Well, it all boils down to one incredibly heavy legal charge: narco-terrorism. Essentially, the U.S. accused the regime of running state-sponsored drug trafficking to bankroll illicit operations. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi formally slapped these heavy criminal charges on Nicolás Maduro and his wife. And right after the extraction went down, Secretary of State Marco Rubio came out and made it crystal clear Maduro was being brought to U.S. soil to face these exact charges in a courtroom. The U.S. wasn't framing this as an act of war, but rather as the biggest, highest-stakes international law enforcement bust in history.
Section 3. The vacuum. Chaos in Caracas.
Meanwhile, back on the ground in Caracas, the immediate aftermath was just total paralysis. A nationwide state of emergency was slapped on the country. Widespread power outages plunged millions of people into pitch darkness, which obviously just sent the panic levels through the roof. You had Vice President Delcy Rodriguez getting on state television in this really frantic address, officially confirming that Maduro and his wife were gone. She was forcefully demanding proof of life from the United States. While all this is happening, the U.S. Embassy in Caracas is telling all American citizens, lock your doors, stay inside indefinitely. Literally overnight, this massive, gaping power vacuum opened up. And you know what they say, nature absolutely abhors a vacuum?
and stepping right into that vacuum was the Venezuelan opposition. They didn't miss a beat. Speaking from exile, opposition leader Maria Corina Machado put out a statement saying, "What had to happen is happening." She wasted absolutely zero time demanding that the internationally recognized opposition candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, step up and take the presidency right then and there. For an opposition movement that had been suppressed for years, this extraction wasn't just a shock to the system. To them, it was the ultimate green light for an immediate regime change.
Section 4. A fractured world. The global response.
As you can imagine, the global reaction was completely all over the map. I mean, the fracture was stark. Even right here in the US, lawmakers were totally split. You had some senators cheering the operation as a huge win, while others were slamming it as completely unconstitutional. Zoom out to the international stage, and the lines get even sharper. France came out swinging, condemning the extraction as a blatant violation of international law. On the flip side, China issued strong statements backing Venezuela's absolute sovereignty. And what about Venezuela's own neighbors? Latin America was basically sliced right down the middle. Half supporting the US intervention, the other half fiercely condemning it. Literally overnight, this event forced the entire world into opposing corners.
Section 5. The ultimate prize. The economic motive.
Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, because there is one monumental, undeniable fact that you simply cannot ignore when you look at the geopolitics of this region. Venezuela is sitting on the #1 largest proven oil reserves in the entire world. Number 1, this mind-boggling amount of resource wealth completely flips the script on what's at stake here. This whole operation, it's not just about local politics or fighting narco-traffickers. We're talking about ultimate control over the literal lifeblood of the global economy.
And the sources we're looking at don't even try to hide this economic motive. It's right out in the open. Right after the extraction, President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance both made definitive statements making it clear they intend for the U.S. to play a major, heavy-handed role in the future of Venezuela's oil industry. And behind closed doors, reports are already leaking that massive U.S. corporations are actively gearing up to swoop in and completely overhaul the Venezuelan energy sector. So that power vacuum we talked about earlier, it's not just a political opening, it's the starting gun for a monumental economic restructuring.
Which brings us to the ultimate questions that this incredible sequence of events leaves us with. Is the power in Caracas actually going to cleanly shift to the opposition, or are we watching the country slide into even deeper chaos? And zooming out to the big picture, what in the world happens to international law now? Does a foreign military dropping in to extract a sovereign leader set a terrifying new global precedent for the rest of the 21st century? The operation itself might be over, but trust me, the true fallout of January 2026, it's really only just begun. Thank you so much for joining me for today's breakdown. Keep questioning the world around you, and I'll catch you in the next one.